want to talk to you about Gareth Edwards, the director, and his 2014 film Godzilla, and how I have evolved my opinion on it, and yet it still leaves me cold. And I will detail 3 reasons why it still leaves me cold. But first, a little bit about Gareth Edwards, the man, the director, the filmmaker. The word that you most often see associated with his filmmaking style is scale. This is a scale man. He knows how to work that scale. He does scale. Everyone who says that he uses scale, they are correct. It's an accurate assessment. He is one of the best mainstream Hollywood filmmakers at utilizing scale and geography to create legitimate, awe-inspiring spectacle on a major big budget level. It was an obvious move for Universal to hire him to make a Jurassic Park movie. Now, full disclosure, I have not seen Jurassic World Rebirth, which came out today. The early buzz is not promising, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about Godzilla, which I saw in theaters in 2014 with huge anticipation because I was a big fan of Gareth Edwards' debut movie, the low-budget sci-fi movie Monsters. I thought it was so impressive what he was able to do with visual effects and with scale, and at such a low budget. But while there were individual visual moments in Godzilla that really stood out to me at the time and that I kept thinking about over time, it did leave me feeling very disappointed. I watched it one more time and felt pretty much the exact same way. My Letterboxd tells me that was in 2018. And so, yeah, great moments, but ultimately it doesn't add up to a successful movie. I just felt let down. So now I've revisited it a third time. Has my opinion evolved? Has Godzilla shot his blue fire into my chest and melted my cold heart? He kind of has. I still feel very mixed about this movie, but the things that work about it work so well, especially compared to other contemporary blockbusters, compared to your Colin Trevorrows, compared to all the other future Godzilla and King Kong movies that came out in this sort of franchise that Warner Brothers and Legendary started. Gareth Edwards, he's able to make you feel legitimate awe as a viewer, both because of what you are seeing, and then you see characters in the movie experiencing legitimate awe and like mystical, like sort of weepy reactions just to amazing things. And we feel it on their behalf when we see Bryan Cranston or Ken Watanabe staring at something amazing. But still, there's some baffling decisions in this movie. Some baffling decisions about the story and about the script and the way the movie is structured. But I remember at the time, the reviews were comparing the movie to Steven Spielberg and specifically to Jaws. And Edwards, I think that's because Gareth Edwards in the movie teases the monster for a long time before he reveals it the same way that Steven Spielberg teases the shark before finally revealing it. And the movie is not subtle about its Jaws references. The main family in the movie, their last name is Brody, just like in Jaws. I think that you can also see the movie as kind of like Jaws, a movie in 2 halves, although really it's like 45 minutes and then the rest of the movie where it's about the building the anticipation of the monster and then the hunt for the monster, which is kind of how Jaws is structured. There's also references to Jurassic Park, like this helicopter shot approaching Jinjira, Japan, very reminiscent of approaching Isla Sorna by helicopter. But the Steven Spielberg movie that Gareth Edwards takes the most inspiration from by far is Close Encounters of the Third Kind in both story decisions and in visual motifs. So Bryan Cranston plays an engineer at the Jinjira nuclear plant, and when the movie opens, it's 1999, and Bryan Cranston is worried about rumblings or whatever beneath the plant, and then a big old nuclear something or other goes off, the town is evacuated, and his wife is tragically killed in the incident. This is all connected to Godzilla in sort of murky ways, but the movie, the thing to note here is that Bryan Cranston is absolutely exceptional in this movie and in this role. And what you have to know is this: in 2014, Bryan Cranston might have been the most popular man on earth. Breaking Bad had just ended. It really seemed like this guy would cross over and become a legitimate movie star, and that this would be the movie to do it. At the time, people called this the Bryan Cranston Godzilla. But when I went to the movie theater and I saw the opening credits, I was quite alarmed. I was like, wait a minute, why is Bryan Cranston billed as and Bryan Cranston last in the credits? Does that mean he's going to die early in the movie? And yeah, that was exactly what happened. But before that happens, you're like, oh, this is Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and he's Richard Dreyfuss. That's delightful. That's such a good idea. It's not, I'm not saying it's a ripoff of Close Encounters. I'm saying, more movies need to do this, like how Point Break gets, ripped off into the Fast and the Furious. You just take the story structure of an old movie and port it over into a new setting. So Bryan Cranston here is Richard Dreyfuss. And in the story of the movie, years have gone by since that incident that opened the movie, and the government and the nuclear power company, they're covering it up. And Bryan Cranston's obsession with getting to the truth, it consumes his life, alienates him from his family, just like in Close Encounters. However, a lot had changed since 1977, and now an interesting older character actor can no longer anchor your blockbuster. So instead, the lead role of the movie is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. Look, we all love Jurassic Park, but I think we can all agree it would be improved immensely if we could replace that grumpy 45-year-old man from New Zealand as Dr. Alan Grant with a 24-year-old hunk who can barely talk. So here, baffling decision number one, I'm going to say not making Bryan Cranston the lead of the movie, and as a consequence, making Aaron Taylor Johnson the lead. I mean, what is going on here? This guy, it's not just that he has the charisma of a soggy, wet pool noodle left in the pool overnight when it shouldn't have been there, which he does. It's that he plays a military man. And that, when he takes over as the lead of the movie's perspective shifts from like normal guy into military, and specifically like professionalized military officer who's competent and always does the right things. More on that to come, but I think that's an enormous mistake. But for the first 40 minutes or so of the movie, with Bryan Cranston as the lead, it's an exceptional movie. I thought like, I was totally wrong. This movie rules. This is great. This is an absolute classic. Cranston enlists his son, Aaron Taylor Johnson, to help him solve the mystery of the seismic activity that indicates something. He's not sure. We know what the movie's called, so we have a good idea. Gareth Edwards does a great job of setting up an atmosphere of intrigue and dread as Bryan Cranston and Aaron Taylor Johnson go into this city that was abandoned 15 years ago, supposedly due to nuclear contamination. This is very reminiscent of Close Encounters, and specifically the scene where Bryan Cranston takes off his mask. He suspects it's not contaminated. The air is safe to breathe. I will admit, a sucker for a movie where a character takes off his mask and everybody's like, no, you can't. And then he's like, it's okay. The air is safe. I will always love it when a character does that. But it's also where you'll notice, like, is the movie rubbing my face in this? Like, look how these characters are dressed. Why is this other character not played by Aaron Paul? A different guy with the first name Aaron. Why is Aaron Paul not the lead of this movie? Everyone, who would have a problem with that? Everyone would love that. Come on, just do it. That's what I would change about the universe if I got a genie. They get caught by a bunch of guys in hazmat suits, and it becomes even more Close Encounters like as they get taken to the nuclear plant, which is humming with activity, and Bryan Cranston, like Richard Dreyfuss in the old movie, yells, I just want to talk to somebody who's in charge. And we even get a modern version of Francois Truffaut from Close Encounters in the form of the Ken Watanabe character. And he too even has his own Balaban in the form of Sally Hawkins, a great actress who has absolutely nothing to do in this movie. All right, finally, this like nuclear plant, it's about to like burst from monsters or whatever. And I'm still not totally sure. But the movie is at its most Steven Spielberg here. We get somebody slowly taking off their glasses to look at something remarkable. We get a crowd of people running away, and then the stoic main character looking in awe in the other direction. Awe is important. These things should be inspiring. They should be magical. They should be inspirational, and then they should be terrifying. That's the Jurassic Park thing. First, look at those dinosaurs. Oh my God, it's incredible. And then, holy shit, they're going to eat us all to death. And Edwards is very good with his action beats. Like the monster here emerges, knocks over some giant scaffolding, then the scaffolding falls and creates additional danger for the characters. This is simple cause and effect action filmmaking, but it is the kind of thing that some blockbusters just skip right past. But here I'm going to get to baffling decision number 2, and it is this. The first creature we meet isn't Godzilla. It is a creature known as the Muto, M-U-T-O. Actually, it's 2 creatures. There's like a mom and a son or something. Godzilla in this movie is kind of an afterthought, or he's treated as such. And these Mutos, like, I'm no Godzilla expert, but I know Mothra, and I know Rodan, and I know King Ghidorah, and I know what they look like. They have iconic designs. This thing is a brand new creation for this movie, and in its design is really flat and boring and just kind of looks like a giant stupid praying mantis. And Godzilla's he is basically, the first mention of him comes from Ken Watanabe, like delivering a PowerPoint presentation. Like, oh, Godzilla's like a thing too. So, keep your eye on that, gang. Godzilla might come out. Bryan Cranston dies. The movie then has to work overtime to come up with reasons for why Aaron Taylor Johnson needs to still be included in the action. There's moments in the movie where like the camera will pan past him and he'll be like waving at the camera like, wait, no, me, I'm here. Matabel, I'm here too. Like Ken Watanabe's like, he needs to stay with us because he might have overheard his dad say something important about Godzilla. And they're like, okay, yes, that totally makes sense that he gets to hang out with the naval high command for the rest of the movie. Speaking of which, the third baffling decision is this, and I already mentioned this, and it's centering the military, which I think is a giant mistake. It makes this movie feel much more like a Michael Bay movie than a Steven Spielberg movie. And like, it's fine. I like Michael Bay movies, but the vibe of this movie, this just doesn't fit with what the movie seems like it was going for. And it's a break from the tradition of Godzilla movies where the government is not supposed to be helpful. They are supposed to be sputtering, not knowing what to do. The military in a situation like that just shoots torpedoes at Godzilla and it does nothing. And they're like, well, we got nothing else. But because this is a modern blockbuster, the movie was made with the cooperation of the United States Department of Defense. Like so many other movies, that's right, it gave the Pentagon script approval in exchange for getting access to aircraft carriers and tanks and military outfits and weapons and all that stuff. Tons of modern movies do that, but that means that you won't get any critical look at the American military. That means you won't see American military personnel doing anything wrong. They can never look bad or even ineffective. And I was thinking, back to Steven Spielberg, and whenever he made a disaster movie, whether it was Jurassic Park or War of the Worlds, the military was not there. They weren't involved. And that's not because he's anti-military. He's certainly not. He loves the troops. But I think he understands as a filmmaker that the audience feels inherently alienated from like the sort of modern professionalized military apparatus, that we can relate way more for whatever reason to a dinosaur scientist or to a police chief from Amity Island than we can to like a super hyper competent modern professional military officer or soldier. And if you want to make one of those characters the anchor of your movie, then you need like a Will Smith in Independence Day. You need megawatt movie star charisma. Instead, we get Aaron Taylor Johnson. Once Bryan Cranston is gone, once you do not have the anchor for your movie, things get really rudderless. The movie moves from impressive disaster sequence to impressive disaster sequences. And again, they are impressive, like the introduction of Godzilla. I love it. You really get a sense for the scale of Godzilla. My favorite thing about Godzilla in this movie is when he swims. He swims a lot, and I like when he swims underneath the aircraft carrier. And the aircraft carrier you got for playing ball with the Pentagon, so good for you. You get this helicopter shot where you see the tiny people just running across the length of the entire vessel, and you see how freaking big Godzilla is. He's very big. I also like that Gareth Edwards always shows Godzilla affecting the environment, like making the tide recede and then coming back in, like birds fleeing. Like, it's great stuff. But the movie then just mostly, like, it checks in with the humans, but you're like, I don't care. I don't care about David Strathairn and the army or the navy or whatever. Just get back to the monsters fighting each other. It's Godzilla fighting the unremarkable Mutos. And I think the reason we have these Mutos and not one of the more iconic Godzilla villains, or how about just having one, just Godzilla? Is Godzilla not enough? You need someone for him to fight. I think the reason is Warner Brothers is thinking franchise. We got to make 10 of these, so we'll save Rodan for a future sequel. That's a case where thinking about sequels, thinking about the future hurts your ability to tell this story the best way you can right now. All of this adds up to a whole that should be a triumphant whole, but it's not. There are so many individual, spectacularly successful sequences that don't add up to a successful whole, because the movie focuses on the military characters, because it has great actors like Ken Watanabe, but doesn't give them anything to do other than stoically comment on the action that they're watching, by not properly building up to Godzilla, by introducing him like, oh yeah, Godzilla's here too, and by repeatedly insisting that we check in with the least interesting character in cinema history, Aaron Taylor Johnson, whose character's name is Ford Brody. Now, like, come on, that is not a real name. The most undignified moment in the movie is when Godzilla and Ford Brody, like, Godzilla has successfully defeated the Mutos and now he's worn from battle, and they both collapse at the same time, and the movie's making like a thematic connection between them. And maybe you could even squint and say, are they telepathically linked like Elliot and E.T.? I'm not saying that's literally happening, but it's like, come on. But I do love the next morning when Godzilla is still passed out and he's just sleeping on the rubble of downtown San Francisco. Nobody has any idea what to do. But Aaron Taylor Johnson, who the whole movie, he's been trying to get back to his wife and kid, his wife, the Scarlet Witch, even though she's his sister. And, that's kind of gross. But the nuclear family is reunited. America's great. We defeated the monsters with a torpedo or something. We did it. Yay. And then Godzilla stands up triumphantly and returns to the sea. This is not the last we will see of him. If we need him one day, he shall return. But I was thinking, if this really wanted to pay tribute to Close Encounters, Aaron Taylor Johnson should have gone back to the sea with Godzilla, like hopped on his back and just gone under the ocean with him. But, since he's not in the sequels, in my head, I'm going to say that is what he did. This is not a bright man. Anyway, I think this is a pretty solid movie. 3.5 stars I give it for how spectacular the action sequences are and for how great the first 40 minutes are. Really, really solid movie. I'd love to see Gareth Edwards get a chance to make another blockbuster his way, not like with Jurassic World Rebirth, where he literally got 1 year to make that movie. And like visual effects movies need 3 years at least, but that's a story for another day.